business, biceps, a little BS. Fitness mixed with finance, now you're really gonna see us as we're learning, growing. All your minds we're blowing, earning while we're burning. Shirts are tight, so games are showing. Resolve, evolve, absolve, it's time to make a move. Better check yourself, cause if you're doubting, no, we got the proof. Voices speaking loud, cause we're proud about what we can do. Tickling your ears with CPE, rooted in the truth.
Well, no, I'm excited to have Chris here from the CPAClub, or is it CPAClub? Is there any the?
No, there's no the. It's like we don't say the Facebook, right? We just say Facebook now.
Well, then all the Ohio State people out there are going to be pretty upset.
Right. That's fair. Well, I'm an SC guy, so I don't care.
Okay. So Chris, thank you so much for showing up on Business, Biceps, and BS. And this is going to be the episode where we change all the rules of accounting, because that's what CPAClub is doing. In fact, you're so good at what you do. You won an award recently, did you not?
We did, yeah. Definitely a pretty humbling experience to be recognized by Cal CPA as the Firm of the Year in the small firm category, and really validates what we've been doing. But more importantly, I think it gives us the ammunition to say, hey, we're doing something right here, and this is maybe a call to action to keep this going. I
agree, and but just so we make sure everybody understands this, there's nothing small about CPAClub. Okay, you might be the small firm, but what you're doing is actually you're standing on the shoulders of giants, and then those giants are now looking at you saying, "Wait a second. Maybe they should be the giant." I think what you guys are doing, and we really need to unpack how you guys are approaching the accounting industry, because what I think you're doing, it's been a long time coming, and people are starting to get really weary of the professional services firm that always charges by the hour, right? It's like the metric inside of the firm is how many hours are you billing? What's your realization rate? What's your percentage of utilization? All of these different metrics that they use in order to maintain their own profitability, right? But also, it really comes down to how are you really servicing your client if every time they call you, it's kind of like the lawyer mentality, right? It's like, oh, you called, you left a voicemail, I listened to your voicemail, I'm going to charge you for 6 minutes, right? Yep. Like, but you only listened to it for 3 minutes. Well, I got to round up, you know. It's
not even hourly billing; it's minutely billing now.
Oh, it's ridiculous. So tell me, because we're going to launch right in this. It's going to unpack everything and roll it out so we can start cherry picking some things to talk about. But CPAClub is doing something vastly different than what the industry is doing. Start rolling it out for me.
Yeah, I think this goes back to maybe the genesis of CPAClub was ultimately my experience at the Big Four. I spent 13 years at PwC. 4 of that was in their national office, and then also was at the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board for a few years as the regulator of the auditing profession. Was an audit partner overseeing quality control at a large regional firm before ultimately launching CPAClub, and it dawned upon me that I had a pretty unique skill set, and I felt like ultimately other local and regional firms and companies need access to that, but they don't necessarily need it on a full-time basis or even an hourly model. And that's really where we started to think, hey, let's create CPAClub to hopefully transform how companies and CPA firms really engage with consultants to ultimately deliver solutions for them. So that created the club, and then from there, developing the subscription access model, and on top of that, because of that access model, the ability for all of our employees to truly have a reasonable workload, and on top of that, really a 4-day work week for the vast majority of the entire year is something that's unprecedented in our profession.
Yeah, absolutely unheard of in the history of our organization or of our industry to actually have a 4-day work week. Now, there were times when I was in auditing, we would do what's called front loading, right? Front loading the engagement, especially if we were out of town. You work the 12 to 15 hours on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so that Thursday you have a little bit of time off, and then when you fly out, you can fly out on Thursday and be home for the Friday. But you're still getting your 60 hours in, right? Which is just a grueling pace, especially for young people who you're not only doing the work, you're waiting for everybody else to finish their work so they can review your work, give you your notes, and then you can go back and start doing this. Well, usually those notes don't come until late Wednesday afternoon, maybe early Thursday morning, and then by the time you're going into the weekend, the first week of a 2-week engagement is done, and so you're almost required to work on the weekends because that's the only time that you can work on it, because next week you're supposed to work on something else, right?
Yeah.
So it just snowballs. And then if you're one of the unlucky staff that is really, really good at your job, the seniors really want you to work on their jobs, and so you're doing a multitude of engagements at the same time, and basically being mediocre on all of them. So with your 4-day work week, how are people responding to that?
Yeah, it's obviously a big draw from a talent perspective, bringing people into the club. But I think just be truthful. Anybody that leads with that in an interview isn't going to go anywhere with CPAClub, because it's not so much we want them to focus on the 4-day work week. We want them to buy into the mission of the collective good that we're trying to achieve for the profession. So it's more about, how do we serve our pass holders? How do we make sure our people have a 5-star experience? And some days, it's going to call for a little more effort, and some weeks it's going to be a little more grueling than others. But in totality, I will still say with confidence that all of our people are experiencing that traditional 4-day work week, or actually non-traditional 4-day work week, probably about 90 to 95% of the year, which again, that's what we're going for, and that's what we've been able to achieve. And it's ironic because we also have to be sensitive to the pass holder experience. And we do obviously serve CPA firms and companies that are very much deadline driven. And so it always comes up, well, what happens if I need you all on a Friday? Or what happens if we have some extra work that has to get done over the weekend? And we actually have made, I'll call it, privileges out of that ability to access our team on a Friday or pay for access on a Saturday, by intentionally prioritizing between our monthly pass holders and our annual pass holders. And so they can simply say, and we present them the option saying, hey, here's your monthly option. You have access to us Monday through Thursday. If you're an annual pass holder, you get preferred pricing, but on top of that, you get the ability to request extra access from our team on Friday, which we hope will be minimal, but ultimately it's there for you. And then also you can buy into extra emergency access on a weekend if you needed to. So the choice is theirs to make. It's not something that we're not necessarily precluding people from doing, but it's ultimately a choice that they make. No different than saying, hey, do you want to fly first class or you want to fly by the bathroom? Your choice.
So I grew up in Cocoa Beach, Florida, which is a stone's throw away from Orlando, Florida, which there happens to be a tiny theme park there called Disney World. And one of the things they rolled out years ago was an annual pass holder, right? Yeah. When and what did that annual pass holder do? Now earlier, it would say you got all these different things that normal ticket holders just don't get, right? You get inside information, you get to be a member of the club, if you will. You in the very beginning, one of the best parts about it was the fast track, right? So you got to skip the lines, and then they got to the point where it was like everybody was becoming pass holders. Like now everybody's in front of the line, and so they're like, oh, we have to step back on that. But I hear annual pass holders. I hear this pass holder word. Is it very similar to that? So when you say a club, it truly is a club.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up Disney World, and I think again I go back to my inspiration. Oftentimes I draw from my own consumer-centric experiences. Okay. So obviously I was born and raised in Anaheim. I grew up going to Disneyland. I'm still about 30 minutes away from there, and a lot of when I go to that park, it's like I can take my family there as an appreciative way to say thank you for everything they've done to help support me with the club. Maybe run it through as a business expense because I'm getting inspiration during that trip, right? Yeah. Ultimately, I look at what they do with the lightning lanes. I look at what they do with the annual pass holders versus the standard daily passes that they sell and say, okay, how do we take a model like that that's obviously thriving and now incorporate that into a professional services environment? Or even the concept of like Apple selling Apple Care, right? Why is that successful? And ultimately, how can we parlay something like that concept into CPAClub? And we can do that, right? So it's really just rethinking how you think about professional services and going, why do professional services have to be sold only one way, aka the billable hour? And why can't they be done with a more consumer-centric experience at the heart of them?
So with your focus on the consumer themselves, your clientele, how are clients responding to this change in methodology?
Yeah, I always tell them because, again, you're dealing with very hardwired individuals that typically have come out of the big four. So all they know is the billable hour concept, utilization reports. And so inevitably, we always get asked, well, how many hours am I getting? And we always turn it back and say, it's not about the hours. It's about here's your monthly investment that you're making with your subscription pass. And at the end of the month, we want you to be, with our scorecard, judge the value of what we delivered. And ultimately, if you feel that we've delivered enough value that's commensurate with your pass, or maybe even more than your investment, you're going to reoccur as a subscriber. You're going to lock into another monthly pass if you really feel there's value there. Or you're going to say, look, this didn't work for me and I had a terrible experience, which will never happen just because our people are that good. But it could. And the way we protect against that is we give them a satisfaction guarantee clause in the actual consulting services agreement to say, look, if you're not satisfied in any month, tell us about it and we'll be happy to refund your money, no questions asked. So we take the friction out of it and just say, you have to experience this yourself. It's just like going back to Disneyland. You could stand there and go, you know what, do I really want to go on Guardians of the Galaxy? It looks a little terrifying. I'm not exactly sure how to ride that. Yeah, that doesn't look like it's for me. But again, you just have to go experience it and say, let me try it. That's all you're doing here. Giving the consumer the power of the choice to make that decision themselves.
And so are you finding that those who are trying it are pleased with this change in methodology?
They are. And again, I know there's a lot of skeptics out there in terms of how this can actually work. But the minute they understand that it's not just about this particular transaction, in other words, you hear from, hey, we want you to review a technical accounting memo, or we want you to do this particular thing. And we have to get them to think more broadly and say, look, your needs and interests are going to change and flex day by day, week by week, and even month to month. And that's totally okay because you have a past that supports pretty much all you can eat, right? And so as opposed to sitting there and going, let me get a new scope, let me get a new agreement, let me get a new engagement letter, it's already taken care of. And I'll give you a good example of this in practice. A company may engage with us to do financial statement preparation services. And we say, great, happy to take care of that. As we go through that, we identify an error with the previous service provider, what they had done for them. We call it out to them. And then all of a sudden we say, you know what, you actually haven't thought about this new accounting standard. Where is that accounted for in your historical financial statements? And they say, oh yeah, we missed it. Okay. What do we have to do? Do you got to bill us extra? No. Do you have to send us a new agreement? No. We're just going to take care of it. That's how it should be at the end of the day.
So I'm curious, right now in the CFO world, just within the past, I would say the past 15 years, really most 10 years, fractional CFOs have become a really big deal. And the vote is out on my side on that because I don't really know if a CFO, if that's something that I really want to have a fractional being because of the strategic element of a CFO, right? So if you have somebody that has one foot in the organization and one foot in doing other CFO work for other clients, I mean, there's benefits to that because they could learn something over here. Obviously, they're not NDAs and all that. You're not going to violate any of the confidentiality, but you could see something in an industry that's being affected by something that could be affecting your client, and you could bring that in and say, "Hey, this is how this is something that I've learned with my experience, and now I'm going to implement it for you." But I also want to look at the fractional CFO piece that if you only have one foot into the client, then the question is that are you all there? Am I getting everything out of you as the CFO, as that C-suite level executive who now I'm depending on for strategy, I'm depending on for the internal workings, right? It just seems like it's something that people could. It could be a slippery slope in that, well, if we're going to do fractional CFO, let's do fractional controllers, let's do all these things. And now we're looking at the CPAClub where it's like, well, actually, we can be your fractional accounting group, right? So what do you say to people that come and they not just poo-poo it, but maybe they're just not used to like you were saying, it's just a different model. What are you providing? Bookkeeping services? Are you providing audit services? What are you actually putting out there for your clients?
Yeah, and on the CPA firm side, it's anything from work paper prep, work paper review, all the way up to engagement quality reviews, and even things like the new quality management standards that all these firms have to implement by December 15th. So anything and everything within that wheelhouse, some of them are going through remediation with the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, help them navigate through that. Some of them need help with peer review. Some of them need help with trainings, right? All that sort of stuff is full circle for us. On the company side, it's anything from managed accounting to business advisory to technical accounting, Office of the CFO services. And I will say our job as professionals is to guide people, right? Our job is not, I don't want to be a permanent solution for any company or CPA firm. What I want to do is provide them a bridge and then in the process help educate and empower their own people so that eventually they can actually, take a path away from us so that they can then stand on their own 2 feet. That to me is what's transformative. This goes back to my big belief, at my heart, I'm an educator, right? And I teach at the university. That's a big part of what I do. coaching, mentoring. That's one of the biggest things we can do as professionals. And that's really what CPAClub is designed to do. It's to help empower. Obviously, we're alleviating some of this work crunch, but also in the process, helping to make sure that these companies can ultimately succeed on their own as well.
Yeah. So when you are out there providing all of these services, they seem more like management services. Do you also offer assurance services?
So ironically, all of our people are extremely gifted former auditors that have worked at the Big Four. And if anybody knows how to audit, it's us. That being said, we actually don't own our own audit engagements. What we do is actually we'll parlay as an extension of a CPA firm's audit team to help drive them to the report that they need to issue under their umbrella. But ultimately, you have to understand where the value of an accounting firm becomes these days, and it's not necessarily in the compliance realm. Most of that stuff is so already there from an automation perspective. We're going to be ultimately cannibalized by that. So I don't want to necessarily have a firm that ultimately has audit and tax compliance services to offer. Could we do it? Absolutely, 100%. Do firms trust us to be able to do that for them? Absolutely. Do I want to own that? Absolutely not.
Okay, so what ends up happening with you guys, if you guys are engaged as a monthly pass holder, annual pass holder, whatever the tier is that your level of engagement. So if someone needs to get an audit, then you've already, I would say that you guys probably don't have the independence to be able to perform it anyway, because you're almost playing like you are management, correct?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So I think of us more as a strategic accounting and advisory company.
Okay, no, that makes a lot of sense, and so I think that clarifies what I was thinking from the standpoint of because when people think of a CPA firm, they think of assurance, right? That's one of the things they do. They think of taxes, they think of consulting and advisory, right? With assurance being the one thing that you always have to, all those checklists of does your family own stock in this? Does your dog does your dog eat these kind of treats? It's like, really, that's going to impair my independence. Yeah. But certainly making decisions on behalf of management would certainly shatter independence. But you guys don't hang that shingle out there. You're not saying we're going to audit our own stuff. You are just the middleman, the person that's stepping up to the plate to say, you know what, guys, we got this. We'll take care of this for you. It's in our best interest that you are a satisfied client and that we answer the questions properly. And if we need a little bit more information, we'll come back and ask you. Is that about right?
Yeah, and I think again, part of this goes back to the privileges of being a pass holder of CPAClub. One of the differentiators and selling points is we've got a great marketing machine that helps ultimately get our name and who we are out there. And so naturally, we do tend to get a number of qualified leads through our door that are looking for either audit, assurance, or tax services that we ourselves won't necessarily provide. But that being said, because of our CPA firm community that's part of as a pass holder of CPAClub, we will then identify almost like a matchmaker and say, you know what, this is a great firm for you to connect with, or these three firms are great for you to consider. And ultimately, those firms, in essence, are powered by CPAClub because we're doing a lot of the back engine stuff to help make them execute those audits successfully.
Wait, so part of your subscription model is to service other firms?
Yep, that's actually where we started. Yeah.
Okay, tell me the model there, because I was thinking private companies this entire time, but that's really interesting. So you are helping other firms with what they're doing, and also helping garner work for them, right? We're fine, yeah. But yeah. So tell me about this. I'm really interested to see if So you service other firms. You said that's where you started. Yep. So tell me what other services do you provide to firms in particular?
If you go back to the onset where I explained my background, right, ultimately I worked at PwC for 13 years. 4 of that was in their national office doing a lot of engagement consultations, technical accounting, audit quality initiatives. I spent 3 years at the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board working on the board's strategic projects. Oh, wow. One of which was audit quality indicators, and then actually was a quality control partner at a firm that ultimately got picked up by Baker Tilly. When I was hired there, I was the first partner that actually was a partner without actually a book of business. That was unheard of. And this is the top 50 CPA firm. Okay. So what actually was one of the inspirations behind CPAClub is I remember this distinctly. I was probably about a month and a half in, and I was traveling up to Northern California to conduct some due diligence on a potential CPA firm they were looking to acquire. And the integration partner said, Chris, you're doing a great job here. We think what you're doing is really valuable, but you need to figure out a way to make yourself cost neutral. And I said, what the heck does that mean? I never heard that from the Big Four before. You never think about yourself as a cost there because you're so insulated. But at a firm like that, you very much stick out on the P&L, right? Well, we're spending all this money on this guy. What's he doing for us? And they don't quite make the connection that just because you don't necessarily produce revenue from a client perspective, that you aren't providing value in terms of protecting the firm, almost like as an insurance policy.
Sure, absolutely.
So that actually was an aha moment for me going, okay, there's probably a market out there for people like me that can do this for local and regional CPA firms where they don't need me full time, but they need me on a fractional basis. Because once I get in there and stand up the infrastructure of a CPA firm in terms of the control system they need to have to ensure their audits go out the door without defects, that's basically what I did, right? They're in trouble with the PCAOB, that sort of stuff. How do I get them out of that? And so then I was like, okay, let me go out there and spin this up. And that was our foray in the market, was actually helping other CPA firms with quality control activities, with quality control monitoring, with training. Everything I was doing in my career was now under a fractional model to CPA firms. And so to this day, we still serve as an extension of CPA firms because they can't access the talent that we have at CPAClub. They would be paying a very pretty penny for that on a full-time basis. And so we said, okay, our duty as professionals and wanting to see those professions succeed is to give those firms access to a bench of people that can help them with anything from quality control to regulatory matters, to training, to a general accounting and advisory, to audit assurance. And so you name it, those CPA firms now have access to our people to that model.
So it's almost like you have a bunch of hired guns that you can, whatever kind of skill set you need, your Batman tool set, you just say, okay, here,
there you go.
Take this individual, take this skill, and hopefully you're supplementing them in some of the things that maybe they do not have.
Yeah, it's a very unique skill set that these firms sometimes don't understand they need it until they actually do need it. And I go back to one of the big movements we've seen in the last few years is the new quality management standards getting released for these CPA firms. And they all have to ultimately put this into effect by December 15th. It's very much like what Sarbanes-Oxley required of public companies when, that was all created back in the early 2000s. They have to design and implement their own system of quality control, right? They've been under these historical systems that for 30 years have been very reactive as opposed to proactive. But we'll get in there and actually design it because we're the experts in quality control. We can actually design that for them and create a scalable model out of it where we can support not only them, but multiple CPA firms in the process.
And so, when working with the CPA firm, so that's one of your client, silos, if you will. So then, from the private side, so you're part of your CPA club is you're also providing private entities the part-time control, the fractional controller, the fractional VP, the fractional CFO. Is that correct?
That's correct. So we had tremendous success with. Accounting Today actually named us, one of their top new products back in 2023. Okay. That was when we were only focused on just CPA firms, right? And so then we said, look, we've had a lot of success with that. We know that private and public companies out there are also very thirsty for talent. Why can't we take our exact same model, that subscription access model, and apply it equally to them? And we have been able to do that very successfully. So now we have a mix between private, public companies, and still obviously a big core of what we do is the CPA firm world.
Do you also do not-for-profits?
Yeah. So anything like that. Again, it's just a matter of, is it managed accounting? Is it business advisory? Is it technical accounting? Our model is all you can eat. So as long as you have the right path, those services are full fair game.
Yeah, that's a really cool model. And from a billing standpoint, when you say subscription, is it one of those things where this is one of the things that used to drive me crazy with CPA firms? They would look at your balance sheet and they'd say how much cash they have in there, how much revenue are they making. They look at the P&L, how much revenue they got, what's the net profit, and then somehow magically they'd come up with a fee for the audit, right? It's like, it's going to be $150,000. Like, how did you come up with that? Well, the algorithm is XYZ. It's like, no, you just basically looked at how much money we're going to make and said, we'll take a piece of that. You're never going to miss it, right? So you guys, when you come at your clientele, is your subscription model like I go to the website and I can say, hey, this is what I want, and it's like it's the same for everybody?
Yeah, so you can't go to the website to do that. I mean, you obviously get a good overview of what we do, and then ultimately you have a discovery call with us, and then literally within a matter of minutes, because we've in essence kind of created a system with all this, is we can spin you out a digital file that includes an overview deck of what we talked about in the discovery call, plus an actual platform to actually select your pass and then sign your agreement and get your invoice and basically submit payment if you wanted to via credit card or a bank transfer in a matter of minutes if you wanted to. And again, that's all part of our focus is on simplifying the complex, not just with respect to the accounting and auditing that's complex, but also just how overly engineered the procurement cycle is for most consulting and professional service providers. It just takes too long, right? I go back to, designing a new website. We used a third-party agency, and it was, great. They did a great job, and incredibly painful from a consumer experience perspective, because first they had to scope it out and say, these are the hours I'm going to take for each of these phases. And at the end of the day, all I care about is I want a website that works and looks great. Okay. and to get then it's like, okay, can you change this for me? Let me go back to the drawing board and see how many hours this is going to take us. And here's your next bill for that. Nobody wants that garbage, right? So we simplify the complex in terms of procurement. But the passes, and it goes back to kind of how Disneyland operates. And I always laugh because I think a lot of firms struggle with how to price their services. I don't think it's rocket science at the end of the day. Maybe we're oversimplifying it. But a firm knows what it wants to hit from a gross margin perspective. Okay? Everything else below is just operating expenses that you can somewhat control and can't control. But the people equation is really, is your cost of services, right? So if you're trying to hit, let's say, a 50 or 60% gross profit margin, and here's your people, well, then what your revenues have to be. And then what that equilibrium is in terms of how many passes you can support in any given month to achieve those revenues. So to answer your question, everybody is somewhat created equally from a pass perspective, right? But some people may use it more and some people may use it less, right? That's just the nature of a subscription. You and I can go to Netflix and I could consume, I don't hardly ever go on Netflix. My wife is on there religiously, right? Well, she's a much heavier consumer than I am. Does it mean I'm not going to resubscribe? No.
Yeah.
So pricing, it's just like, it's almost like, it's just elementary in my view.
And so in the CPA world, in all the different circles that you're in, I'm assuming that you are well networked, not only throughout California, but also in multiple states, because I feel like this is probably catching on in other places too. Is that correct?
When you say other places, are you talking about other
states, right?
Services?
So you say you're a CPAClub, but CPAClub usually when you have CPA, it's like a state. You're licensed by the state of California, so you're a state of California, right? And certainly there's reciprocity with various states and what have you. But do you also drift into Nevada? Are you in Washington? Like, are you starting to spread? Are you just completely jump them and you're over on the East Coast? How are you moving that way?
Good question. So at the end of the day, we are a licensed CPA firm in California. We are also registered with the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, which allows us to ultimately provide engagement quality reviewer services for other CPA firms, public companies. That being said, if you looked at our actual pass holder base, and we do this all the time, it's almost like you need a map of the United States and you'd have different pinpoints of all the places you've traveled, almost like a world tour, right?
All right.
You have very little concentration here, let's say in Orange County, which is interesting. But end of the day, our pass holders are spread across the United States. We serve them virtually for the most part, and there are those that ultimately want us to be there in person as needed.
So is it fair to ask this question? If you don't want to answer that, I totally understand. But but from a scale of smaller companies, whether it's mom pop small firms to larger companies, what would be the ends?
Well, let me ask you this. I'll flip it for you, and this will answer your question.
Okay.
When you go to Disneyland, are there people that perhaps can only go once a year, and there's people that go every single day?
That's fair.
Are there people that are maybe considered poverty level here in the United States that can still visit Disneyland, and people that are billionaires walking around Disneyland? Yeah. It's the same for CPAClub. And at the end of the day, because our model is flexible, we've helped everything from a sole proprietor all the way up to $5-6 billion public companies.
Wow, really?
Yep.
That's fantastic. Now, are all of your professionals based out of California?
Nope. So all of our professionals are employees of CPAClub, and that's important because we want to make sure we weren't relying on an independent contractor model. We want them to buy into the vision, and ultimately it gives us a better product too. So they're all employees of CPAClub. There's a big chunk of them here, Southern California, Orange County, San Diego based, and then there's other folks kind of spread throughout the U.S.
So are these franchises then?
Nope.
All underneath one with company owned?
Company owned, yeah.
No, I think that's a really great model. It helps you maintain your consistency of service delivery. And then also it allows you to, when you're in these various markets, you're using the people in the markets who understand not only the region and the locality, but also as simple as what's the dialect in the area, right? If you're gonna go in the South, sometimes you need a good old boy appeal in order for you to make inroads into the smaller mom and pops that need services, but they don't want some city slicker coming on in and getting the fancy words and the fancy ties, right? So, but if you the way you guys are doing it, you're going in, you're picking those individuals who do they show interest in you? Have you gone and recruited people? How does that work?
So in the infancy of CPAClub, we obviously had to be more proactive in trying to identify the right candidates. Fortunately, I had a good network of people that I had worked with in the past from the Big Four, as well as, my first couple of hires were people that I had known in working at PwC back in the day. And then I think now, if you ask me, how would you go out there and get talent? Because of the strength and caliber of our people, because of what we've accomplished in a short period of time, is we have more organic interest in us, or I'll call it external interest. People coming to us saying, hey, I'd love to work at CPAClub because of what you're all doing. That, again, is like, as the leader of the club, it's super humbling to see that, because that tells you, again, the vision I had back in the day has come so far in terms of now people are actually buying into it and understanding it, as opposed to me thinking it's my own vision and hopefully people will, maybe get around to it. But now we've got people actually buy into it. So they do actually come to us and we get resumes a lot. And it just depends, is there a good strategic fit to bring on board or not? But, our challenge as a subscription service, and you see this with the likes of Amazon and anything else out there, is you always have to plus the offering, right? And so because we're not a billable hour model, all of our people are incentivized to actually figure out how do they do things more efficiently, more effectively through AI, automation, all that sort of stuff. And it's one of the things we actually evaluate our people on. And we have our CPAClub star. One of the points is pass holders. One of the points is the people, meaning the internal employees. One of the points is performance. One of the points is innovation. And so every month they're reflecting on, what have I done around innovation? Well, that's a big part of what we do here at the club. Is it's not so much just their technical skills that we're looking for, but it's also, do they understand that they are in a future leading firm that's very forward thinking, that thrives on innovation. And ultimately, CPAClub is the biggest subscriber to all of our employees' talents in comparison to any other company or firm out there. So they have to take care of the club first and foremost.
I'm curious. So in my yesteryear, I used to work with when I was PwC. Was it Deloitte or PwC? One of those. One of the organizations that we used to audit, I think it was with Deloitte. They had Brown & Brown insurance company, right? And at the time, Brown & Brown was rushing headlong. They wanted to be the Marsh & McLennan. Now, the Marsh & McLennan is the behemoth in that industry. At least it was 15, 20 years ago. I'm sure it still is now. But they wanted to be Marsh & McLennan. So when we did, this is SEC clients, so we were in Daytona Beach very often. I was driving over from Tallahassee, go down to Daytona Beach. Daytona Beach isn't like it's not the shining star of Florida, and so it was kind of interesting that's where they're headquartered. But anyway, when we're talking to them, one of the things that they were doing is that they were growing through mergers and acquisition, and when they would go in, it would be one of those things where, like, when a bank comes in and buys a local bank, and that people go home one night and they come back in and the signs have changed and all the branding is different. And so what I remember talking with Brown & Brown specifically is that they were doing on average anywhere between 22 to 25 M&A deals a quarter. And so all we were doing is like, because of course the revenues are growing, but so is the growth of the human resource pool, right? So you're not only bringing on the revenue, but you're also bringing on all the costs of maintaining these other firms. Well, one of the things that they ran into that I thought was really interesting was the human side of, but I don't want to work for Brown & Brown. Mm-hmm. Right? Well, you're not doing anything different than you were yesterday. It's just under a different umbrella. It's like, yeah, but I just don't. It's not something that I never thought. What was wrong with the old logo? What was wrong with it? And so you have this assimilation process where some people do assimilate, and some people are like, no, it's just not a good fit for me. I'm curious, when people experience that, like when they come in and say, I want to be part of CPAClub, have you had individuals that have come in and they test it out and they go, man, I don't know, I just feel uncomfortable here. I'd rather go back to this hourly model that I'm comfortable with?
I'd say no.
Okay.
I don't think anybody's going to go back to the way it was because we are so laser focused on ensuring a 5-star employee experience. And again, our North Star of our CPA Club star is the experience. Both the pass holder side's got to be 5-star and the employee side or the people side has to also be 5-star. Those things have to be in harmony, right? And so sometimes, and I think oftentimes firms think too much about the clients and not necessarily enough about the people, right? What's the experience on the people? And, even before this, we were just having a call internally about a prospect that actually is a very lucrative opportunity for CPA Club, but ultimately it's somewhat of they're looking for a transaction fix as opposed to an actual transformation. And so we're trying to go, okay, we'd love to get our foot in the door with this large public company, but ultimately it'll probably end up being more transaction oriented than transformative. And it also doesn't fit with our subscription model because we would probably just be selling a one-time solution for them as opposed to more transformation. Now, the reason I bring this up is because the reason we landed on stay true to the model and stay true to the subscription is because if we don't, that transaction ultimately becomes a guaranteed deliverable for that company. And so if anything slips along the way, we're the ones bearing the price of that. And so we may start up, let's say in October, and then nothing comes to us October, November, December. And then all of a sudden, everybody wants what they wanted done. Now they're ready in January. Well, what does that do? Who's taking on the brunt of that? The employee, right? Because now they've got their other pass holders they got to support. And oh, by the way, we have basically this other stuff that didn't get done. Not our fault, but ultimately we're paying the price for that. And so we ultimately said, look, we're going to stay true to the model. And if they bite, they bite. If they don't, they don't. But the employee experience is so much more valuable there. Most companies and firms would take the opposite lens and just say, look, let's get our foot in the door. We'll figure out how to solve for it at the end of the day and not care about the employee side. That's, in my view, the wrong way to take this.
So question for you. You mentioned earlier that you do adjunct work, right? You're working at what university or college do you participate?
I've, over the last 14 years, I've served as an adjunct professor teaching anything from intro accounting all the way to advanced auditing at undergrad as well as master's programs, UC Irvine, USC, Cal State Fullerton, and Chatham, but super proud because I'm actually back in my alma mater this semester at Claremont McKenna. So teaching the auditing class there. They're a great group of kids.
So I'm curious, with CPAClub, the first thing I'm imagining is that you probably are looking at experienced hires first. Yeah. Are you starting to see that there are younger professionals that are starting to look to CPAClub that says, hey, I think I want this to be my career trajectory?
Yeah, it could be, but I think we would be doing a little bit of a disservice. And I'll go back to my experience in the Big Four. Sure, there was definitely some grueling nights, but in totality, I was able to last as long as I did because of the different unique experiences it gave me throughout my journey, whether it was, hey, I'm going to take a rotation and go up there and help design the new audit software platform, or I'm going to help on this national transformation exercise, right? I put my hand in different pots along the way, and that allowed me to create longevity out of my career there. I will never look back and go, hey, this was a bad thing. And so people that come into CPAClub, I will never say, hey, don't go pursue a Big Four environment. Just be careful. Because ultimately, the reason people are buyers of CPAClub is because of the Big Four pedigree we bring to the table, right? Okay. So that's still an important element. But are we equipped at this point in our life cycle to go out there and give them the training experience or the infrastructure that a Big Four can in those first, call it 2 to 5 years? No, we're not going to pretend to be that at this point. Will we get there at some point? Possibly. Okay, but for now, to me, it's like, no different than the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board. They're only hiring people that are audit managers above, typically. Okay, they'll let the Big Four train them up and then ultimately leverage their talents for the long term. So kind of the same model here at CPAClub. So we do our part in terms of trying to bring on board, we call these academy cadets that kind of go through a quasi Uber-like internship with us that's year-round. But that's as close as we'll get, I think, right now. So ultimately competing at that lower level for talent.
So experience level hires are what you're looking for, because what they bring to the table is something that you can actually fit into a subscription model because they have a skill set that you need for a particular client, a particular subscriber, right?
Yeah, they can be very transformative for them.
I think that's good, and it's also good because I had a guest on a show a while back, and he's a track coach. And one of the things I was asking him was like he teaches sprinting and specifically sprinting and all the benefits of what you can do inside your 50, your 100s, your 200 types of runs. And one of the things I asked him, I said, well, you're working with high school students, and these high school students are going off to college, right? And then when they come home from the summer, if they're not working with the regiment with their university coaches, then he'll pop in, but he also knows that there's limitations because once you go off to the university, that's your coach, and you should be listening to them first because they're now taking ownership of developing you into a better athlete, right, and a better person. But I did ask him going the other way. I said, so you do high school. I keep hearing you mention high school. What about the middle schoolers? Do you train middle schoolers? Do you train elementary kids? And he said, actually, no, I don't. And he was very upfront with it, which I appreciated. And he said, and I said, well, why? I mean, I would think that you would want to get out there early so that you kind of plant the seeds like, I'm your coach. And now as you start moving through the ranks of middle school and then finally get to high school, you've had this kid for, 5, 6, 7 years. And now you're just refining this, just this beast of a sprinter. And he said, well, actually, it comes down to they're just not ready for that type of instruction. When you're in the middle school ranks, it's still kind of one of those things like, yeah, I think I'm fast. I think I can do this. But it's not really something that people are thinking about going to school yet and saying I can get a scholarship, or mom and dad are counting on me to, get out of this small town and go do something great on a track scholarship. Or really the dedication isn't there. All right. So for him, he said, no, I don't do it. But he doesn't poo-poo the idea. He just basically says, I'm not the coach for your son or daughter right now. Now, when they get to that age and they want advanced instruction, come on back because that means that they're serious about it and that you guys have kept me in mind, and I would love to have them. So what you're saying, and if I could put it in that kind of track example, is that you like that experienced hires. You like those people that have chosen that they want to go in this path, and now they're moving over to CPAClub because they see a kind of a better version of what the CPA firm could be. They already know what it's like over at the Big Four, so they bring all that experience into play. And now you have a professional who, one, has great experience, but also appreciates the fact that they're not under this grind that they were experiencing before. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, totally. I mean, at the end of the day, there's so much value that they bring to us when they bring over those experiences. And it's not even just in terms of their technical knowledge, but also think about, we're going to ask them what was wrong with the experience you had as an employee and ultimately use that to help build something even better here at CPAClub. So we're never locked in stone. Like everything we do every day is still iterating. We're still building. We're still trying to make it better. And the only way we get that intelligence is actually to have employees who have experienced that firsthand.
No, I 100% appreciate where you're going there, and I really agree with I love the honesty that you have, and that you're not pretending to be something you're not. You know that once you get there, it was kind of one of those things where when Arthur Anderson was around, anybody that got the golden ticket and was able to go ahead and be inside Arthur Anderson, they knew once they made manager that they had made it, and all of a sudden they were going to all they're going to do is playing golf and doing all the things that you would see on the Enron movies. But but besides that, it was one of those things where you arrived and everybody saw that Arthur Anderson logo and said, oh yeah, that person, they must be really good. They were the Harvard of the Big Five, Big Six at the time. So I appreciate that when you say that this is who we are, you toe that line. And so anybody that comes to you and says, hey, what kind of professionals do you have? We have experienced professionals that have the pedigree that you're looking for, and we can dole it out in whatever size or shape that you want.
Yeah. And, I go back to this, again, how different this is from other models. And obviously, there are, agencies that companies can go to ultimately find interim help and that sort of stuff. And even though we don't necessarily consider ourselves interim help because we want to be more transformative, more relationship driven, the fact is that interim help model is like, okay, here is the resource you're not going to have for this particular week or this particular week. You're locked into that resource, whether they can do something for you or not, right? Well, our model is a lot different because each one of our passes provides access to one professional per day. And depending on which pass you have, you can pivot and switch those people as well. So you might say, look, day one, I need somebody to help out with a business combination because that's a super complex transaction. Day two comes around, maybe it's the same person helping to navigate through that still. Day 3, something else happens, and hey, I need somebody to help out with maybe SOX control work, right? Okay, well, let's bring on this person instead. That ability to swap professionals based on their skill set, based on their expertise, is immensely valuable to companies as well.
I find that fascinating, and I think that that approach right there is the reason why you won that award. I truly think that behind the baseball, the conversation that we had after the interviews and things, I was able to be on your interview for the Cal CPA award. It was, guys, I think this is the future of the CPA firm. I think this is the way it needs to be. It's also one of those things where I think that there's ways that we can approach these students, because I think personally, I think a career in public accounting is incredibly rewarding. Obviously we just said that the experience in your first couple of years is, I think poor is probably the wrong word. I think it's a challenge is what it is, and it's a challenge because you really have to figure out the social, the political, the economic ramifications of what are these decision makes. If I get 5 weeks of vacation when I start, do I really get to take 5 weeks of vacation, or do I get to take that extra long weekend and just kind of plan those out so that I'm not the person that's never there on the engagement, right? So going back in the classroom with these kids that are looking at all of these opportunities in front of them, both public, private, and what have you. I still think there is a lot of value in going to the Big 4, Big 6, Big 20, Big 25, doesn't matter, into the public accounting arena. My question is, though, is that as these kids start moving through the process of learning accounting, learning the managerial, learning the financial reporting, and then all the different electives that they're doing to kind of fill in the gaps. Now that they're coming out with not having to have their CPA license, because now the 150 rule is being, it's falling like the walls of Jericho everywhere. So now you're coming into these organizations and you're getting 2 years of experience before you can really get your CPA license. So why are they staying? Are they staying in the industry? Are they deciding to move on into private because now they got their 2 years of Big 4 experience? Their resume is checked off, and now they can move out. They have so many more other options because now, like you said, the pedigree is already there. So when we go back into the classroom, when the students that you're speaking with, the students that I'm speaking with, the concerns that they see are the jobs going to be there, and then what do I really need to know when I get there? Mm-hmm. So what kind of curriculum do you think? I know that you said you taught anything from the intro to the master's level. What do you think is missing from today's accounting curriculum that if we were to implement it tomorrow, that we would see the fruit of our labor within the next 2 to 3 years?
I mean, I think, and I have a little bit more of a radical view, I think you have to actually rethink how educational content is consumed. Okay. I don't think, again, looking at the generation that's coming up through the ranks, how are they most equipped to learn right now? What do they traditionally what is their go-to source for how they tend to consume and learn? Well, it's realistically brief video clips. That's right. Probably anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes long, maybe 10 minutes if you actually got their attention span that long. And it's some sort of gamified experience, right? Well, if you look at our educational system, there are some elements of that popping into place, but for the most part, at the college level in particular, it is tried and true in terms of and again, like public accounting, it is set in its ways, right? And so how do you actually transform the educational experience in the accounting programs? I think that is ultimately what can be done. It's not just how do you fix a single class, but ultimately, how do you give them a more experiential learning path that actually gets them excited about what they're about to go into? So I know it's a little bit maybe aloof in terms of the answer, but I just think it's a broader question about how you've got to reshape the landscape of how they're being educated.
Yeah. So being out in the Hollywood area, one of the things that I keep going back on when I get asked this question is what do you think is missing? What do you think is missing from the accounting curriculum? I think I tell them straight out. I think storytelling. I think the art of storytelling and being able to take a bunch of numbers that you may know. more about from the people that are, you may know more about the actual reporting side of it than the people that are in the business. The business, they know why those numbers are the way they are, but they may not know exactly the reason why, what makes them successful versus what makes them not successful. And so my standpoint is that there's a storytelling element here that we're missing. And the one class that we do have to take, and it's not elective, you have to take one of these. It's a business communication course, right? So it's how to write an email, how to write a proper text message, how to do a speech, how to do a presentation, right? But from my perspective, I think that the actual skill set that we need to be developing in our young professionals is the ability to write technically, to be able to make that technical tangible, so that others who don't have a CPA license, who aren't accountants, can actually understand that information. But realistically, how about just getting down to the basics of beginning, middle, and end? And being able to just take a customer on that journey through their financial statements, so that when you're having that conversation, you can relate it to what those people are actually what's the word I'm looking for? What's meaningful to them, right?
Yeah.
And so go.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is somewhat related, but it comes down to, one is communication is obviously a very key skill set that everybody needs to learn at some point in their careers. But we do tend to focus a bit more on the technical course content, right? These problem sets that I probably, even as a professor, if you gave me one of these things from intermediate and advanced accounting, I wouldn't be able to solve if I didn't necessarily read the book again, right? So it's like, okay, I learned that 25 years ago, but what good has it actually given me today, right? And the same thing could be said about some of the math that our kids are learning these days. Like, my son brought to me a 2-page paper that he had to show for 4 problems how he actually got to his answer. And he's like, I just know the answer. It is what it is. Why do I got to explain how I got to it, right? Well, there's a method to the madness, but ultimately, thinking about communication, thinking about how do they present themselves, right? Thinking about how do they convey the best image of who they are as a professional. Some of those softer skills, which are oftentimes, and I teach classes, experience manager programs, where we just focus on, again, the soft skills, the project management. Like, that is so fundamental to everything we do in the professional services world. I agree. And yet nobody takes a project management class in college or majors doing that, realistically, right? But that is like 80% of your work once you hit senior associate or manager in the Big Four firm is project management. Very little on the technical side. Yeah, you got to know it, but at the end of the day, you just got to know how to run a project really well.
Yeah, and from the standpoint of what are the three? You got the realization, you get your utilization, your firm economics, right? The economics of the engagement itself, right? Yeah. Not to mention the political ramifications of what happens if those things slip, right? I'm really interested to see where accounting education is going to go over the next 5 to 10 years. I think we have a really great opportunity right now to inform the colleges and universities on how the industry, what the industry would like to see coming out of their universities with those diplomas. That obviously that's something that we can talk about at a later date. We've talked about it ad nauseum before, but having your background as a professor, I just wanted to ask you specifically if there's something that you see, and obviously the project management thing, that's actually a really good angle.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you though on the storytelling, and the AICPA put out that whole pipeline search study. I think it was like 80 pages long, and I can boil it down to 2 things. Basically, they're overworked, they're underpaid. Sorry, 3 things, and they're not getting a great instructor at that very first course that they're taking in undergraduate, right? And so that's part of who's telling the story of accounting at the onset to these kids that are in the classroom. If it's not your best person on your team doing that, then you're probably missing the window and opportunity to actually hook those folks on public accounting and just accounting as a career in general, because that's where they're making their decision usually. I've been in such, like, I absolutely love teaching intro accounting. Because again, I'll double down on that and say, I love teaching intro accounting to non-accounting majors only for the purpose that I want to make sure I can convert a few of those into accounting, right?
Yeah,
that's the greatest satisfaction I have. Yeah. You're like, okay, I've hit something, I've done something correct, right? Well, if you don't have somebody that has a passion for that intro level class, you're never going to hook any of those kids into this. And that's where I think it's so critical to put the right person that can tell the right story in that class at that moment. Otherwise, it's going to be too late. When they come take my auditing class, right, they're a senior at that point in time. they've already made up their mind. At that point in time, it's either going to go audit or going to go tax, right?
That's
but
right.
I'm not convincing them to go into the profession. They're already there. I want to hit them earlier where they actually are more, you're more formative in terms of the path they're going to choose that's going forward for them.
Yeah, to see that accounting degree really does have the level of the power that's behind it. Not only that you're going to have almost a guaranteed job wherever you go, but also that it's a good building block for anything else you want to
Totally.
do.
Yeah, and this is, I know you and I have talked about this, right? And part of what I did in my class this semester was spin up that Careers Powered by Auditing series, where we're bringing in guest lecturers to speak for half the class every other Monday, basically. And it's people that are almost like handpicked that have had a little bit different trajectory through public accounting. It's not the people that basically started out in audit, became an audit senior, an audit manager, audit senior manager, audit partner, and have been a partner ever since, right? It's people that actually have taken different twists and turns in their careers to show them, hey, you may start in auditing, but it opens up a world of possibilities once you enter that field. I mean, look at yourself, look at me. There's so many people that have that career journey that's just unique and different, and really, again, makes you think back and go, wow, I've had a heck of a career because of the opportunities I've been able to have in public accounting.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so when you have that fantastic eclectic career, then you finally come up with this great idea called CPAClub, and now you're there's the tectonic plates are shifting underneath this industry, and I think that when it all shakes out, I think that CPAClub is going to be the ones that people look to as, okay, I get it now. This is the future of where we need to go. We're going to listen a little bit more to our clients. We're going to give them the value, and we're going to price it as a value, as opposed to just nickel and diming them on the hourly. I think that you have a formula here. I think the new people that are coming in, even though they can't come right into your firm, I think there's going to be one of those things like, once I get my 4 or 5 years of experience, then I'm going to go and I'm ready. You're going to have a pipeline of kids or young professionals at that point who are going to want to come and be the next CPAClub employee, because that's the level of the bar has been raised to where these are the people that when clients talk about their financial services partner, that they say, I don't know what it is about these guys, but whatever it is, they are just different. They bring a different kind of moxie to the table. So I want to know that if I'm an experienced hire or experienced CPA, do I need to be a CPA to be part of CPAClub?
You do. It's part of the admission process.
Okay, well,
you got to be a CPA.
It's good to know. So
hard to be a CPA club if you don't actually have a CPA within it.
It's not just club.
It's not just a club. Maybe someday it'll be the clubhouse.
Okay, so I'm a CPA. I've got a bunch of experience, and I'm thinking about a change in what I'm doing, whether I'm currently private in a not-for-profit in public accounting, and I'm thinking CPAClub is where I want to be. How do I contact CPAClub? How do I get involved with you?
Yeah, so easiest way, like most folks, CPAClub.cpa, and then there is a career section on there that'll take you out to an overview of how we work from a careers perspective, the different journeys we provide people, and ultimately links out to available opportunities with the club. So easiest way, we do things quick though at the club. We grow very fast. Yeah.
I love the pace, man. A lot of people say when they leave public accounting, they miss the harried pace, right? Then there's the other people that are just like, no, I'm cool. I'm good with it.
Well, and it's interesting because I kind of feel like we take a very agile approach. We have monthly passes and annual passes, but because of those monthly passes, it's almost like every month is a new sprint, right? And so it's like you take a course, 15 weeks later, you're done with it, and then you're on to your new course. But then think about quarters. It's like you take a course for 10 weeks, you're done. Then another 10 weeks, similar concept here, but you actually have these 4-week sprints that actually force you, because you're going to do a monthly self-reflection to go, you got to answer the first question we lead off with is, did you deliver and did you receive a 5-star experience? And you simply ask yes or no to that question. And if you're being honest and truthful, you'll answer it transparently. And if you do say no, for whatever reason, it spurs dialogue, it spurs change, and it spurs ultimately a better club at the end of the day because you've been honest on things like that. So, we hold people to.
So Chris Vanover, CEO of CPAClub, lots of C's there. I'm going to give you the last word. Give me your pitch for CPAClub, because then we're gonna start the music and we're all going to be dancing out in the outro.
So we do a lot of things that have a nautical perspective at CPAClub. We sell passes. One of our premier passes is called our Captain's Pass. Our mid-level pass is called our Chief's Pass, and our basic pass is called our Crew Pass. Everything we do has some sort of nautical influence, and part of that stems from my own experience, having been a cadet at the U.S. Coast Guard Academy back in the day. But I do remember when I left Claremont McKenna, and I had to write a senior thesis. And my thesis at the time, this is turning it in December of 2001. I was in economics, accounting, and legal studies minor. And I wrote my thesis on legal liability in the accounting profession before I ended up knowing what was about to happen with Enron and Anderson and WorldCom. So it was like 1 year ahead of it where it probably should have been. But on the dedication page, I'm a big believer, and I've lived by this song lyric for a long, long time in my life. And whether you like him or don't, Garth Brooks is the individual that sings the song The River. And there's a particular lyric in there that says, choose to chance the rapids and dare to dance the tide. So that is what we try to live by every single day at CPAClub. It's what I try to live by, is go out there and be bold, be different, and don't be afraid to make some waves.
I like it. Well, thank you very much, Chris, for being on Business, Biceps, and BS. I hope that this episode will help some experienced people look at another avenue for servicing the clients in the beautiful discipline that we have in accounting. And I'm looking forward to some big things out of you and your group.
Yeah, next time we'll talk about the biceps too, right?
We'll get into the biceps later. Yeah, better. Hey, it's great to see you. I'll give you a call next time I'm out on the West Coast.
All right. Good seeing you. Bye-bye.
See you, brother. Bye-bye.